Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into the world of automotive disasters with 5 super worst cars you will not believe. From terrible designs to epic fails, these cars are so bad, they're almost unbelievable. Get ready for a wild ride as we explore these notorious automotive flops. Let's get started. 5. TATRA 603 2V8. The TATRA 603 2V8, a car that has secured its spot at number 5 on our list of the worst cars ever made. Yes, you heard that right. The TATRA 603 2V8, with all its charm and unique features, is a classic case of a car that missed the mark despite its potential. Let's take a closer look at why this intriguing vehicle earned its dubious distinction. At first glance, the TATRA 603 2V8 appears to be an embodiment of elegance and innovation. Produced between 1962 and 1975 and then Czechoslovakia, the car was intended to be a luxurious symbol of the socialist state's engineering prowess. Its streamlined, almost futuristic design with smooth curves and a distinctive front end made it stand out. Under the hood, it packed a rear-mounted, air-cooled 2.5-liter V8 engine, a rarity in its time, promising a blend of power and sophistication. However, the TATRA 603 2V8's allure quickly fades when we delve into its driving experience and practicality. One of the primary reasons it ranks as one of the worst cars is its notoriously poor handling. The rear engine layout, while innovative, resulted in a weight distribution that made the car difficult to control, especially at higher speeds. Drivers often found themselves battling with understeer and oversteer, turning a simple drive into a nerve-wracking ordeal. Moreover, the TATRA 603 2V8 was plagued with reliability issues. The air-cooled engine, though an engineering marvel, was prone to overheating and frequent breakdowns. Maintenance was a nightmare, with parts being scarce and repairs complicated. This made owning a TATRA a labor of love, one that required patience and deep pockets. Inside, the car offered a mixed bag of features. The spacious interior was a plus, with plush seats and ample legroom providing a comfortable ride when the car was actually running. However, the dashboard and controls were counterintuitive and clunky, a far cry from the user-friendly designs we see in modern vehicles. The electrical system was another Achilles' heel, with frequent malfunctions turning the simplest tasks, like turning on the headlights, into a game of chance. Despite these shortcomings, the TATRA 603 2V8 holds a special place in automotive history. It was a car designed with ambition and a vision of the future, albeit one that didn't quite pan out. Its unique aesthetics and engineering quirks make it a fascinating relic of a bygone era, a testament to the spirit of innovation and the occasional missteps along the road to progress. So, there you have it. The story of the TATRA 603 2V8, a car that promised so much yet delivered so little. A blend of beauty and frustration, it's a reminder that not all that glitters is gold in the automotive world. But here's the burning question for you. If you had the chance to take the TATRA 603 2V8 for a spin, would you dare to experience its quirks firsthand? Let us know in the comments below. Let us know in the comments. Number 4. 1956. Pontiac Club de Mer. A time when the automotive industry was buzzing with futuristic concepts and groundbreaking designs. Today, we spotlight the 1956 Pontiac Club de Mer, a car that has earned the dubious honor of ranking 4th on our list of the worst cars ever made. Yes, you heard that correctly. Despite its glamorous appearance and innovative features, the Club de Mer falls short in more ways than one. Let's delve into the reasons behind its controversial reputation. At first glance, the Pontiac Club de Mer is a striking vision of the future. Unveiled at the 1956 General Motors Motorama, this sleek, low-slung roadster captivated audiences with its aerospace-inspired design. The car's body was made of aluminum, and its styling included a low-profile open cockpit and a distinctive vertical fin running along the center of the rear deck, giving it a jet-age look that was the epitome of 1950s futuristic optimism. Underneath its eye-catching exterior, the Club de Mer featured a rear-mounted, fuel-injected V8 engine. This setup promised not only high performance, but also a glimpse into the future of automotive engineering. The car's specifications were impressive on paper, with a focus on speed and aerodynamics that set it apart from the more conventional vehicles of its time. However, despite its dazzling design and forward-thinking features, the Pontiac Club de Mer is often regarded as one of the worst cars for several compelling reasons. Firstly, it was never meant for mass production. It was purely a concept car, a showpiece to demonstrate what could be possible. This means it was never subjected to the rigorous testing and refinement processes that production cars undergo, leading to numerous practical issues. One of the most glaring problems was its usability. The low-slung design, while visually stunning, made getting in and out of the car a challenge. The open cockpit, which lacked any significant weather protection, rendered the car impractical for everyday use. Additionally, the advanced engineering of the V8 engine was ahead of its time, and without proper development and testing, it was prone to frequent breakdowns and maintenance issues. Furthermore, the Club de Mer's design, although beautiful, was more about form than function. The aerodynamics might have been cutting edge, but the car's handling and drivability were compromised. The rear-mounted engine setup led to an uneven weight distribution, resulting in poor handling characteristics that made driving the car a less than pleasant experience. Despite these shortcomings, the Pontiac Club de Mer remains an iconic piece of automotive history. It embodies the spirit of innovation and the bold, adventurous vision of the future that defined the 1950s. Its place in the annals of car history is secure, not for its success on the roads, but for its daring to dream big, even if it fell short in execution. So there you have it, the tale of the 1956 Pontiac Club de Mer, a car that dazzled with its futuristic looks, but stumbled in practicality and execution. It's a reminder that not all concept cars are destined for greatness on the roads. Now, we turn the spotlight to you. If given the chance, would you take the Pontiac Club de Mer for a drive to experience its futuristic charm firsthand, despite its flaws? Let us know in the comments below. Let us know in the Number 3. 1953. Cadillac Elegante, the 1953 Cadillac Elegante. Sitting in third place on our list of the worst cars ever made, this vehicle is a curious blend of luxury and failure. Let's explore why this car, despite its illustrious heritage, earned such a notorious reputation. At first glance, the Cadillac Elegante seems like the epitome of 1950s automotive luxury. Unveiled as a concept car at the 1953 General Motors Motorama, the Elegante was intended to showcase Cadillac's vision for the future. Its sleek, elongated body, adorned with chrome accents and a striking two-tone paint job, exuded a sense of opulence and sophistication. The Elegante's low, sweeping lines and finely crafted details promised a driving experience that was nothing short of extraordinary. Under the hood, the Elegante was equipped with a V8 engine designed to deliver robust power and performance. This was paired with a state-of-the-art suspension system aimed at providing a smooth, comfortable ride. The interior was no less impressive, featuring plush leather seats, a futuristic dashboard, and advanced controls that hinted at the luxuries to come. However, the Cadillac Elegante's allure quickly fades when you delve deeper into its real-world performance and practicality. One of the main reasons it ranks as one of the worst cars is its flawed execution and lack of functionality. The car, like many concept vehicles, was never intended for mass production. It was built primarily for show, which meant that many of its features were impractical or poorly engineered for everyday use. Firstly, the Elegante's handling left much to be desired. Despite its powerful V8 engine, the car's weight distribution and suspension system were not optimized for actual driving conditions. This resulted in a vehicle that was difficult to control, particularly at higher speeds or on less than perfect roads. The steering was unresponsive, and the car often felt more like a barge than a luxury cruiser. Secondly, the Elegante was plagued with reliability issues. The advanced technology and features, while impressive on paper, were prone to frequent malfunctions. The electrical systems were particularly troublesome, leading to a host of issues from non-functioning gauges to outright breakdowns. Maintenance was a nightmare, with parts that were difficult to find and repairs that were complex and costly. Moreover, the interior, despite its luxurious appearance, had its share of problems. The innovative controls and futuristic dashboard were not user-friendly, confusing drivers and detracting from the overall driving experience. The plush seats, though comfortable, were poorly constructed, leading to wear and tear that did not befit a car of its supposed caliber. Despite these significant flaws, the Cadillac Elegante remains a fascinating footnote in automotive history. It is a car that exemplified the bold, ambitious spirit of the 1950s, a time when car makers were unafraid to push the boundaries of design and technology. Its place on our list of the worst cars serves as a reminder that even the most luxurious and well-intentioned designs can fall short when not properly executed. So there you have it, the story of the 1953 Cadillac Elegante, a car that dazzled with its promise of luxury but ultimately failed to deliver on the road. It's a tale of grandeur and missteps, a testament to the fact that not all that glitters is gold in the world of automobiles. Now, here's a question for you. If you could take a ride in the Cadillac Elegante and experience its luxury and flaws firsthand, would you be tempted to give it a spin? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Two, 1954 Dodge Granada. Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts as we travel back to the early 1950s, a time of automotive innovation and daring designs. Today, we spotlight the 1954 Dodge Granada, a car that has earned the notorious distinction of ranking second on our list of the worst cars ever made. Despite its initial promise and eye-catching features, the Granada fell short in several critical areas. Let's delve into why this car, despite its bold ambitions, ended up as one of the most infamous failures in automotive history. At first glance, the 1954 Dodge Granada appears to be a masterpiece of mid-century design. Unveiled as a concept car, it boasted sleek lines, a distinctive front grille, and an alluring two-tone paint scheme that screamed sophistication. The car was designed to be a luxury cruiser, capturing the attention of anyone who laid eyes on it. Its low-slung profile and sweeping curves suggested speed and elegance, promising a driving experience like no other. Under the hood, the Granada featured a powerful V8 engine, a hallmark of American muscle and performance. Dodge aimed to combine this raw power with the comfort and luxury expected of a high-end vehicle. The interior was lavishly appointed with plush leather seats, chrome accents, and a futuristic dashboard, offering a glimpse into what the future of motoring could hold. However, despite these promising features, the Dodge Granada quickly became known for its shortcomings. One of the primary reasons it ranks as one of the worst cars is its disastrous performance and lack of practicality. As a concept car, it was never intended for mass production, and many of its features were either poorly executed or entirely impractical for everyday use. The most glaring issue was the car's handling. The Granada's weight distribution and suspension were not optimized for real-world driving conditions. This resulted in a vehicle that was incredibly difficult to control, especially at higher speeds. The steering was unresponsive, and the car's tendency to oversteer or understeer made it a nightmare to drive. Even experienced drivers found it challenging to keep the Granada on the road. Moreover, the Granada was plagued with reliability issues. The advanced technology and features, while impressive at first glance, were prone to frequent malfunctions. The electrical system was notoriously unreliable, with gauges that would fail without warning and lights that would flicker unpredictably. The engine, despite its powerful specifications, suffered from overheating and frequent breakdowns, making the car a liability rather than a luxury. Inside, the supposed luxury of the Granada quickly turned into a source of frustration. The futuristic dashboard and controls were anything but user-friendly, confusing drivers and detracting from the overall experience. The plush seats, though comfortable, were not durable, leading to premature wear and tear. The interior's aesthetic appeal was marred by its lack of functionality and practicality. Despite these significant flaws, the 1954 Dodge Granada remains a fascinating chapter in automotive history. It embodies the bold, adventurous spirit of the 1950s, a time when car manufacturers were unafraid to experiment with new designs and technologies. Its place on our list of the worst cars is a testament to the fact that even the most promising concepts can fall short when not properly executed. So, there you have it, the story of the 1954 Dodge Granada, a car that dazzled with its promise of luxury and performance, but ultimately failed to deliver on its potential. It's a tale of ambition and disappointment, reminding us that not all that glitters is gold in the world of automobiles. Would you take it for a spin despite its notorious reputation? Let us know in the comments below. 1. 1948 Panhard Levassor Dynavia. The 1948 Panhard Levassor Dynavia. Ranked number 1 on our list of the worst cars ever made, the Dynavia is a fascinating case of ambition gone awry. Let's explore why this car, despite its groundbreaking features, earned such a notorious reputation. At first glance, the 1948 Panhard Levassor Dynavia is a marvel of futuristic design. Unveiled at the Paris Motor Show, this car was meant to showcase the future of automobile engineering. Its most striking feature was its teardrop-shaped body, designed with aerodynamics in mind. The streamlined shape, complete with a bubble canopy and enclosed rear wheels, gave it a look that was decades ahead of its time. Panhard engineers claimed that this design would minimize air resistance and maximize fuel efficiency, setting new standards for automotive innovation. Underneath its avant-garde exterior, the Dynavia was powered by a small, air-cooled 610cc flat twin engine. This might seem underwhelming by today's standards, but it was meant to be a lightweight, efficient power plant that would complement the car's aerodynamic design. The interior was equally forward-thinking, featuring a minimalist dashboard and innovative seating arrangement intended to provide maximum comfort and visibility. However, the Panhard Levassor Dynavia's allure quickly fades when you dig deeper into its real-world performance and practicality. One of the main reasons it ranks as the worst car is its dismal driving experience and numerous engineering flaws. The car's teardrop shape, while theoretically aerodynamic, turned out to be highly impractical. The bubble canopy created severe glare and heat issues, making it uncomfortable and dangerous to drive in sunny conditions. Additionally, the enclosed rear wheels made it difficult to service and maintain, leading to frequent and costly repairs. The small engine, though innovative, was woefully underpowered. Despite the car's lightweight construction, the engine struggled to provide adequate acceleration and performance. The Dynavia's top speed was modest, and it had difficulty maintaining even that on inclines or rough terrain. This lack of power made the driving experience frustrating and sluggish, far from the dynamic performance its design promised. Inside, the minimalist approach backfired. The dashboard controls were confusing and not intuitive, making it difficult for drivers to operate the car safely. The innovative seating arrangement, while unique, was uncomfortable on longer journeys, and the limited visibility from the bubble canopy was a constant issue. The interior materials were of poor quality, wearing out quickly and detracting from the car's overall appeal. Despite these significant shortcomings, the 1948 Panhard Levassor Dynavia remains a fascinating piece of automotive history. It represents a bold attempt to push the boundaries of design and engineering, a testament to the spirit of innovation that characterized the post-war era. Its place at the top of our list of the worst cars serves as a reminder that even the most visionary ideas can fail spectacularly when not properly executed. Now here's a question for you. If you had the opportunity to experience the Panhard Levassor Dynavia's groundbreaking design and frustrating flaws firsthand, Would you be tempted to take it for a drive? Share your thoughts in the comments below.